I'm Dave Miller. This is Think Out Loud. It's been almost a year since students all across Oregon started doing school from home. It's been difficult for many young people, but students with disabilities have faced particular challenges because special education services don't always translate to virtual platforms, and some of these students have missed out on things like physical therapy or speech therapy, as well as the accommodations that make it possible for them to receive a free, appropriate public education. In a few minutes, we're going to hear about the legal remedies for families, but we start with one family's story. Maria Rangel is a mother of 3 school-aged children, including a daughter, Ruby, who experiences Down syndrome. Rangel is also the bilingual program coordinator for Northwest Disability Support. I talked to her yesterday. I asked her what school was like for Ruby before the pandemic.
Special education for Ruby before pandemic was 3 classes in the general education setting, and then all her other core academic classes are in a special education setting. And some of the classes that she got on general education were art, PE, and she had a like a teacher assistant period as well. And she loves school. She is a social girl, and she loves the whole going to school interactions with her friends, getting to say hi to everyone, getting to see her friends, and just the whole social piece is huge for her.
So being in school was a big deal. Physically being in school.
Yeah, I have my 2 other boys, they wake up and I have to convince them to go to school and have a good day versus Ruby. She is up and ready and yay, it's school day and I'm going to school. And yeah, she loves school.
You're talking in the present tense there, but you're talking about the past.
Yes, she loved.
So let's come to the present for the last, for almost a year now. What is school like for her and for you these days?
Yeah, so school for her now is just like sitting down in front of a laptop and listening to lessons from her teacher. So not very much interaction there with her classmates. It's just her taking in what the teacher's teaching that day. And at the beginning of the pandemic, when the schools closed, it was very hard. I want to say it took us like 2 months. By the time that the school year was ending was when she kind of like started adjusting to the new idea of like, this is the new reality for her, because it does take her time to process changes. She does not like changes. She loves routine. And so whenever there's a change coming that I know of, I have to prep her like weeks before and kind of like help her comprehend what the change is going to be. And since this whole pandemic thing was from one day to another, they're in school and then they're told that they're not coming back, and then they go back on online learning through a laptop. And so she didn't want to do it. She would close down the laptop. And it still takes a lot of my time. I had to pretty much become her one-on-one assistant that she receives through her IEP at school. When she's in school in her classes, she has her paraeducator that helps her with every class she has. And so I had to become that for her in order for her to be able to access her education through distance learning. Even details like, or things like, I have to log her in on the laptop and help her look what class she's doing. And if it wasn't for me being able to do that for her, I don't think she would even be able to access online education.
So basically, it seems like a full-time job for you to
Yes.
be a support person for her so she can actually take part in school. But meanwhile, you have 2 other school-aged children and a paying job as well. How are you fitting everything into a single day?
Yeah, I laugh because I don't want to cry now. That's my new strategy, right? I'm like, you just laugh it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very hard. I mean, it's still hard. Every day I tell my kids and myself that next day will be better. And when we do have those little successes, we celebrate, but they're very rare. And so I am fortunate enough that I work for an organization for Northwest Disability Support, and they are very flexible with my hours. I was able to speak to them and say, hey, I can't work on mornings because I'm trying to help support all three of my kids in the morning. So I don't start work until 1 and then end like around 6 in order to have my hours for the week. So in the mornings, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about like what a morning looks for like for us. So I have to get up at 8 a.m. and wake the kids up and give them a light breakfast and have my 2 boys log in. And then after I help them log in or make sure that they logged in, then I pretty much have to go sit next to Ruby from 9 to 11:30 to do her 2 morning classes. And it's hard because I have to be next to her in order to make sure that she's understanding what the teacher's asking and what the teacher's saying and helping her cue her to participate. She uses a communication device she uses an iPad with the communication app that she uses to communicate. So I have to make sure that the right vocabulary is there for her to be able to participate. So I have to prep the night before.
Do you feel like she's learning right now? I mean, that's the goal of all of this. We're talking about school. Do you think that she's learning things right now?
I think she is, but I have to be honest, and the only reason I think she is because she has my support. Because I was able to drop everything and become her one-on-one support for school. And I mean, it's difficult because I have a 7-year-old that also needs a lot of support. I mean, my 13-year-old son, I'm able to just be like making sure that you're logged in and doing what you're supposed to do. But sometimes I have to go in between the room where my 7-year-old does his online learning to where the living room where my daughter Ruby does her online learning. And I have to run back and forth and make sure that I'm helping both of them. And honestly, I feel like I'm having to neglect my other 2 children in order to make sure that Ruby is having the support that she needs to access online learning.
Have your goals for her academic work, you mentioned an acronym earlier, an important one for the world of special education, an IEP, an individualized education plan. Has that changed because of the pandemic?
It has. I mean, she was working on goals that she was only able to work on from the school setting, right? And so I had her IEP meeting this past December, and I kind of had to say, we need to develop a distance learning temporary plan for her, just because I don't want to change anything from her IEP for whenever she does go back to school. But some of the goals and some of the stuff that's on the IEP, there's no way that I'm going to be able to do that from home.
What do you think it's going to take to get her back on track? I mean, to bring that earlier education plan back to where it was before comprehensive distance learning started?
I honestly don't think it could with the level of support that she needs. I don't think that she will be able to work on some of the stuff that she was working on from school setting at home.
It'll take going back to school with dedicated people with her to go back to the kinds of things she was doing before.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
about emotionally? I mean, you talked about a girl who seems really social and loved the physical interactions, being around people, going to school. How is she
Yeah.
doing emotionally now with what I imagine is a lot less in-person social interaction?
Yeah, I mean, she misses it a lot, and she tells me all the time, she gets upset, and she tells me when she tells me school bus, school, and I'm like, really, there's no school. And it took her a while to understand that this was the new reality, but it's still sometimes to now we're into the new school year, and this has been going on for a year now. And she still sometimes has those moments where she gets upset and confused and wants to go to school. She'll get up in the morning and she will dress herself and try to walk out the door to go to the bus stop because she wants to go to school.
So, as you mentioned, you have been able to work from home and to shift your hours so that you can do a ton of one-on-one work with your daughter. But in your professional life, you're the bilingual program coordinator for Northwest Disability Support. My understanding is you work with a lot of families who don't necessarily have that flexibility. What kinds
Yes.
of additional barriers are these families facing?
I mean, a lot, a lot. I could tell you 100 barriers that they're facing, but some of the constant ones that I've been hearing from the families that I help support is one of them being the language barrier. I am able to help support three of my children because I am bilingual and I can read the emails. I can, help them understand their homework. But most households and that parents don't speak English and they're not receiving all this information in Spanish. Some parents don't know how to navigate technology. They don't know how to sometimes turn on a laptop, what the login information, how to do the login information or whatnot. And so it's becoming very difficult, as well as like I work for an organization that's flexible with me and I'm able to do this. But a lot of parents are working away from the home and still have to go to their everyday jobs and their kids stay at home. And that's resulting in kids not having that support that they need, and not because the parents don't want to give it to them, but because the parents they help support their children with the online learning, or they bring food into their homes and money to pay their essential stuff like rent and bills and stuff. And so some parents, their kids are not accessing online learning at all because of the level of support that they need. And some parents rely on the older siblings to do that for the kids. And that's also impacting the siblings' educations.
What do you think the long-term implications are going to be for these families whose kids, some of whom have disabilities, or the siblings of kids with disabilities who are just not taking part in school right now? What do you see as the long-term repercussions?
If there's going to be gaps in education for them, there's, this, I hope that schools aren't expecting that when kids go back to school, they're going to be at the levels of learning that their grade says they need to be, because they're not. There's a lot of gaps going on and a lot of learning that's not being done or being, comprehend or whatnot. And so I feel like, academically, kids are going to be behind.
Maria Rangel, thanks very much for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me and for letting me share some of my experience.